I knew that, particularly when I first started making music, I knew I had a long sort of way to go. It's a long journey and I need to hone my own craft a lot. So I knew in the meantime, I need to find some way to sustain myself. I need to also set myself up with a backup plan in case music, because music's not an easy way to make a living. I've always been a lot more quite introverted, quite protected, and quite inward with my feelings rather than sort of expressing them.
Right.
And if anything, it only really came out more when I was writing and in the music. If I ever get rich, I'm going to buy a bunch of vinyls. In a room, I'll buy a shelf where I can stack and buy the title. A chair, a couple speakers, and the feeling of arrival as I listen to these lyrics like a reading from the Bible.
Today, I have an amazing guest, Noah Bouchard. Noah is a 25-year-old alternative hip-hop artist from Cardiff, Wales. He is known for creating lyrically focused and vulnerable music. One of his earliest songs, Pantomime, has now streamed over 3 million times on Spotify alone, gaining hundreds and thousands of streams and views on other platforms as well. Noah has performed countless of times across Wales and also other parts of the UK, including 2 intimate sold-out headline shows in Cardiff and London, as well as performance at the BBC Six Music Fringe Festival, Hub Festival, and the National Lottery's ReviveLive tour. Noah is one of the current artists supported by the Youth Music UK Next Gen Fund, and has had support previously from the BBC Wales Horizons Launchpad Fund, as well as being played on BBC Radio itself on 1Extra, BBC Radio Wales, Represent, Unity Radio, and many other radio stations across the UK. He has also been featured on Spotify's New Music Friday and Fresh Finds playlist, as well as the playlist by Ministry of Sound and Wordplay magazine, to name a few. I'm very excited to welcome Noah today. Welcome to the show, Noah. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Excellent. I want to start by knowing a bit more about you. So what's your origin story? What's your background? And then what motivates you today?
Yeah, sure. So I'm 25 years old, from Cardiff in Wales. I've lived in London now for like about 6 years or so. I'm a hip-hop artist. I've been making music now for about 10 years or so, I think. And alongside that, I'm also a pharmacist as well, sort of as my day job, because music is not paying the bills yet. But yeah, that's basically who I am. That's what I do. Yeah. In terms of sort of, you say what motivates me today?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be happy. I think that's basically what I'm trying to achieve. I'm trying to get to know myself. I'm trying to express myself. I'm trying to support myself, and live a good life.
Yeah.
That's all I'm really trying to do.
Yeah. Like, I guess it's a very good goal to have, right? When you talk about your music, and you said you started 10 years ago, what made you get into the music in the first place?
Yeah, I've got no idea. I don't remember like starting to make music. I just remember being in it at some point. I guess I started really paying attention to music and developing my own taste and working out what I was into probably when I was about 12, 13 years old. I remember I had do you remember the iPod Nanos?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I used to have one of them, and then at that time, everybody was buying music on iTunes and that kind of thing, but I couldn't really do that because I didn't have any money because I was 12. So I used to just find free mixtapes and that kind of stuff online, and that's basically what I would listen to.
Interesting.
And yeah, a lot of that, so it was getting into sort of grime music to start with, and then other forms of hip-hop, alternative, rap music, and from there kind of sparked I guess a sort of passion for the music in general. And then at some point, obviously, through some form of attention deficiency, or I don't know, my big ego thought that maybe I should try to do it myself. and then somehow I've ended up here.
Yeah, I've listened to your music. It's pretty good, so I wouldn't beat yourself to that. So yeah, I mean, the thing with doing something that you really love or something you're passionate about is, you know, the whole thing that you said earlier, that it doesn't pay your bills yet, but hopefully it will in the future. But then just taking that step in the first place, the first step is always really hard, right? And get that rhythm going, which you have now.
Yeah, I mean, I think to be fair, I'm quite proud of myself. I think it took a lot of courage at first to take that step and particularly I think for myself, I come from somewhere where it's not like there's a huge like music or specifically hip hop scene. As the years have gone on, it's expanded, and I'm very proud and happy to be a part of that in my hometown. But yeah, I didn't know anybody who made music, and it certainly took a lot at first to try and to come out almost as a musician or an artist or a rapper or whatever. Particularly because I was always quite a shy and nerdy kid, to be honest with you. I don't think it's really what people expected of me, but yeah, obviously it's just for whatever reason I gravitated towards it.
Amazing, yeah. And then obviously you said you were a pharmacist.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
In there, it's like a Superman, right? And I know you went to uni. When I think about you, I see sort of the hip hop artist or music artist, and then I see a pharmacy, and I'm trying to connect the dots.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit more about like why did you choose to go to pharmacy? But of course, like you said, it doesn't pay your bills yet, so you still need to keep that fire going.
Yeah. So
tell me about that route, and then how does it connect to this route, and what makes you who you are today, I guess.
Yeah. So in terms of being a pharmacist, I mean, in school I was pretty good, to be honest with you, like good grades, all that kind of stuff. After I finished school, I took a gap year, I suppose. I wouldn't necessarily call it a gap year in the sense I didn't like go travelling and find myself or anything. I just worked in a hospital basically. Wow. As a physio assistant. I really enjoyed like being on the wards. I really enjoyed helping the patients and having quite sort of direct contact with them. It was a big thing for me, and I loved it. But yeah, so I was looking at basically jobs within healthcare or careers within healthcare that I could follow. Pharmacy seemed like a nice option. I knew that I wanted to move to London as well, because then that helped I wanted to be with music as well. Obviously, London being kind of the hub in the UK for that. I thought it would be nice to be in London. I thought, I can study pharmacy. I can go to uni in London. I can establish myself with a career path, and I can still follow the music as well at the same time. Right. And now, having been through uni and done all my training and being qualified as a pharmacist now, and I do that during the week, and I really enjoy it, to be honest. It's a nice job to have. I do get a lot of sort of that direct patient contact that I really enjoyed when I was first working in a hospital. And at the same time, it allows me enough time and space to create my music as well. So, yeah.
I speak to a lot of youth today, and a lot of them are sort of, they have a dilemma of whether they should go to uni or not.
Okay.
Because the value doesn't seem to be clear. Especially, we've gone through pandemic and a lot of online learning. So do I need to go to uni, right? Can I just not learn online? And then also you think about the cost as well of uni. It's pretty high, right? And so then it makes it even more like a case for studying online versus physically going to a uni and paying that much money, right? And I'm not saying there's no value in uni. We're in uni at the moment filming this, right? So there's definitely value there. But what was your experience there? And was it like an easy decision, no-brainer for you, or did you go through the similar emotions?
I always wanted to go to uni myself, just because, for me personally, and this is only a personal
of course
story. I'm not trying to give advice, but for me personally, it made sense. I knew that wanting to do something down the route where I wanted to go in terms of my career. I had to go uni to do that. I thought, that also gives me a good reason to then move to London as well. I can continue my education, and it made sense for me. But I do think, it's not an easy choice for everybody, and I think for a lot of people it makes sense not to do that and to, go in a different direction. You can do apprenticeships or internships or going straight into work or whatever it is that suits you.
Was there any point where you thought, like, actually, maybe I should just do the music full time and I don't want to go to uni? Maybe I'll just spend 3 years just grinding on the music or just like working really hard on the music.
Yeah.
And was there ever a thought in the beginning that this could be something you could do rather than going to uni?
Not so much at first for me. I knew that, particularly when I first started making music, I knew I had a long sort of way to go. It's a long journey and I need to hone my own craft a lot. So I knew in the meantime I need to find some way to sustain myself. I need to also set myself up with a backup plan in case because music's not an easy way to make a living. Even if you're successful and you have lots of fans and all that kind of stuff, making actual money from it is very difficult. So I knew I always needed to have sort of a plan B or something else that can back me up. So again, for me, that was the decision that I made.
Yeah.
For other people, I mean, there are, I know some other people who are doing that and, doing very well from it.
Right.
I guess it's just a personal decision.
Fair enough, yeah. And of course, like, when you think about like all the choices and you go to uni, there's a lot of pressure, right? Mm-hmm. So the mental health side of things can become quite tricky. Did you have any experiences around mental health? And because I know you write a lot about mental health and your songs refer that to mental health quite a bit. So tell me your journey on that front and why did you, if you think about like your journey from like pre-uni, in uni, and then of course right since then till now, and then of course you're writing about mental health as well. Mm-hmm. Connect the dots for me here.
I think the weird thing for me, and I'm probably reflecting more upon several years ago now, I don't think I necessarily recognised it while I was in it. I think I ended up in a place where I was isolating myself quite a lot. Even in a period of time, I think I just like stayed in the flat on my own for like 2 weeks and just like barely spoke a word to anybody. I think I was very lucky that I had one friend who checked up on me a lot, and she wasn't presently in the country but was texting me and making sure I was alright all the time, which was a big part of them helping me to
very big part
get my own way sort of out that hole. But yeah, I think it was difficult to recognise it at the time. I think because I was aware and I'd seen issues of depression, anxiety and similar things play out in people that I knew and was close to. And I think the way that I displayed it maybe was a bit different to how they would. And I've always been a lot more quite introverted, quite protected, and quite inward with my feelings rather than sort of expressing them.
Right.
And if anything, it only really came out more when I was writing and in the music, which is a bit weird. I feel like in some ways I learned more about myself through what I was writing rather than the writing expressing what I was thinking. Maybe that's a weird way to put it, but I feel like sometimes I write things and then I can look back afterwards and be like, oh, that was quite dark. So it almost tells me more about myself through that.
Yeah, it's almost like journaling, right? When you actually write it down, it makes it, you're almost kind of letting it out. Yeah. But also for you, it's like you're making a beautiful song out of it as well.
Yeah. I mean that is one of the positives, I suppose, is that, and one of the things that kept me going during that time is that I'm able to turn what is quite a negative experience into a positive product at the end of the day, I'm able to produce something out of that darkness.
Right.
What I will say is I think over several years and with the support of my friends, my family, and getting to know myself as a person, I'm a lot more happy and stable and aware of my own emotions now than I would have been back then. Yeah. Which I guess is part of just masculinity as well, is particularly I think during my sort of teenage years, you go from being quite an expressive sort of preteen, because you don't really think too much at that point, you're just acting. And then as you get older, you're like, oh, okay, no, I need to rein it in. I need to keep things to myself. This isn't cool. I'm not going to cry in front of my friends. They're going to think I'm stupid. And
Yeah.
trying to then unlearn that later in life. And because I think I completely lost attachment with what I was actually feeling. I couldn't recognize an emotion while I was feeling it. And yeah, that's something that now I think I'm trying to develop later on.
It's a very common thing I've heard, honestly. It's like, that phrase of like, man up.
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't cry in front of your friends or even family or nobody, right? Because you're supposed to be this tough and you have to keep it together and don't show your emotions to everybody because that makes you a bad man or whatever, right? And that's so wrong because we're all humans regardless of the gender, right? We all have emotions, varying degrees of emotions. Even if you're the same gender, you might deal with certain problem very differently. And just because you're showing your emotion doesn't make you a less of a person or a human, right? So this whole image the society has built for certain genders, that you have to keep it inside and you can't do this, you can't cry. I just find that almost ridiculous, honestly. And I think, like I've heard so many people say recently that mental health is essentially a pandemic. COVID was a pandemic and kind of finished. Well, it's finished, but mental health is like a forever pandemic. So we have to always look after you have to look after your mental health, but also what you mentioned, like your friends, your family, they also play a big part in your own happiness as well, right? So was there one point where it was you sort of realizing, or self-awareness, that you said, okay, well, you started writing down? Was that the point that you said, okay, well, I think there's something here that I need to like suddenly realize and change and do maybe something about it?
Yeah. I don't know if there was necessarily one sort of light bulb moment of,
It could be many,
I think it was more of a sort of gradual realization, but yeah, there was definitely points I was like, okay, I don't think I'm being myself right now. This isn't how I want to act. This isn't how I normally see myself, but something's clearly gone a bit wrong and I need to put myself back on track. And it takes a lot of effort and willpower to do that. For anybody, and obviously, again, I think I'm lucky that I've had the support of my my friends and people that I'm close to over those years. So, yeah, I don't think it was necessarily sort of one moment specifically, but the music helps with it. It's certainly not a cure by any means. Nowhere near as sort of therapeutic as actually talking to people is, and the kind of reflection and self-learning that you need to go through. But it certainly helps.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just to go back to sort of the masculinity side of things as well, and sort of the man up pandemic, as you said. I guess one of the things I think is just important to note as well is it's not easy for women either.
Of course.
As much as it's with men, it's an issue of expressing ourselves, but I don't think it's easy for women either. And I think that the pressure that the men feel not to express themselves is also mostly created by men as well. Anyway, just want to put that out quite quickly.
It's actually true. We've had people on the show, and one of them specifically lost their son, and they were 20 something, and some of the stats that I've learned are just shocking. That like 60% of the life taken away by like suicide basically are men, and they are in like thousands, right? Not in tens or hundreds, like thousands of people every year. Specific more men than women, and I'm sorry, this is not a comparison. I'm just saying if clearly there's something that is affecting a little bit more to men than women, but of course, like it doesn't matter if you're as I said, like any gender, you could face same issues, exactly the same issues, and you could go through exactly the same depression, anxiety. But the point that you make is so important, because if you are in a male group of friends versus a female suffering from depression, female group of friends, you, I don't know, for some reason, females feel comfortable talking to each other in a way, to a certain extent, versus like, if I'm sad some days, I never pick up the phone with my male friends and say, I want to talk to you about why I'm sad. I will never do that. I don't know why. I might talk to my wife, or my mum, or my sister, maybe. That's a big maybe. But most of the time, I keep it inside.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's fine. I have to deal with it. I have to be strong. Whatever stories that you tell yourself to just like numb it down. But really, there needs to be an outlet. Whoever you speak to, doesn't matter gender, whatever, or even like get professional help. Just get help is the answer really, right?
Yeah, for sure. I do think it's something that I'm trying to, and I probably encourage other men to do the same. To make sort of concerted effort to actually speak to your other male friends, and not only for your own benefit but for theirs as well.
Yeah.
Because and again, for me, at first I definitely found it easier speaking to my female friends, which is lovely, and also men, please have female friends.
Yeah.
Please. But yeah, trying to then breach those topics with your male friends as well is it's important, just so we can learn to express ourselves. And with the music as well, I think it does help that, given that it's publicised, there's almost less to hide, Everybody kind of knows what you're
feeling.
Yeah, you're putting your feelings out there to the whole world, which there's a vulnerability that comes with that I think then helps in those conversations as well.
Yeah. Let's talk about one of your songs. You have this song called Bed Bound.
Oh yeah.
Tell me about that song a bit more. What is it about, and maybe why did you write that song specifically, and what's the message that you're trying to portray with that song?
Sure. I don't remember writing it actually. Now thinking about it now, I haven't really thought about it. I don't remember the actual writing process, but I think at that time I was just trying to get across that idea of the isolation that you feel when you're just being sort of stuck in one room kind of thing, and the loneliness that comes with that, and the way that you kind of start second guessing yourself and spiraling. Weirdly, I think that song actually, I made it several months beforehand, but I think it was released during sort of prime pandemic lockdown time, so it kind of took on a bit of a new meaning at that time as well.
Right.
Obviously being sort of locked in.
Yeah.
But yeah, and to this day, it's one of my favourite songs I've done. I don't know, I just think it sounds quite nice.
What's your favourite few lines?
I'm terrible at just reciting lines off the top of my head. There was something along the lines of, I can find the dark in a rainbow, I can find the edge on a halo. Oh yeah, what was it? I can find depression in heaven, I can find the hate in an angel. I can find the dark in a rainbow, I can find the edge on a halo. The boy in the corner with the blood in the water and the dust on the floor because the bed's ever calling. Yeah, I think that was probably my favourite little part.
Yeah, I love that. I could listen to that song live performance.
Yeah,
amazing.
Come along one day.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, and I mean, obviously, as you said that getting into music industry is tough, but then also making it is even probably tougher, right?
Of course.
I mean, you think about like young people like yourselves trying to get into this industry. Of course, it starts with passion. Of course, it starts with some skills or something, right? But once you get past that, what are the hurdles in the industry and making it somewhere? In your opinion?
I mean, I'm no expert on this. I'm still very much trying to work it out myself. And I'm still fairly early stages as well in terms of that sort of progression. But I think that's quite a lot. I mean, there's the way that you market yourself, the way you brand yourself, and these things are really difficult things to work out because it almost feels like you're kind of putting yourself in a box a bit, and you're saying, okay, I am this specific person. And of course, nobody is one specific person. We're all so multifaceted and and malleable. So it's difficult to then kind of settle on one specific thing that you are. And I guess it can change over time, but still. Also where you are specifically, geographically, because so much of it comes down to just who you know and the contacts that you make. And I don't just mean that in the sense of knowing somebody who's like head of a record label or that kind of stuff, but even just getting to know people who have a good vision and a good idea of creative direction and who can push you in the right directions. People who understand and can produce for you, or can do photos and videos for you, or can help you out with I don't know, styling or whatever it is it might be, dependent on what you're specifically trying to do.
Sure.
There's so many sort of elements to it, and trying to get it all right is obviously a difficult thing. It takes quite a long time. And
it can become quite overwhelming, right? There's like so many things to deal with or to fix or to it's kind of, it's like a big puzzle in a way. You're trying to put it all together, right?
Yeah, there's a whole social media element of it as well, which is such a big thing now, and is still something that I'm trying to get my head around. I'm not the most tech savvy guy, but trying to work that out as well. But yeah, there's so much that goes into it, and a lot of it also is just luck at the end of the day. I feel like that if you want to give yourself the best chance, and this is what I'm trying to do, is just make the best music you can. And I feel like the better the music there is, then the more chance that you'll get into spaces where you're going to meet the people who are able to then help you further along that journey. You're going to gravitate towards people who also have a similar vision, and you'll find yourself in part of a sort of a community of people who are sort of like-minded and have similar goals in mind. So I think that's ultimately the best thing you can do, is just make your end product the best it can be.
Yeah, quality matters, right? Yeah. If you have quality product, then people will come and get it, I guess. So that makes sense. What do you wish for if there was a few wishes to be granted? What help would you want from the industry, from the people in the industry?
Oh, lots of money, please.
Apart from the money. Some money is one, of course.
I guess at the moment what I would value is, firstly, people with a good ear. And I do have a few of those people, but it's always good to have feedback and people who are going to push you in the right directions, because it's so hard to tell when you're making the music. You get so lost inside it, and it's difficult to get an outside perspective, and people who can maybe see that and work out, okay, this needs to change, that needs to change, this is where this can go to make it work. That would be very useful. Something to, I really enjoy like music videos, and at the moment I'm trying to obviously make that and make the coolest thing I can on a fairly small budget with a small team. It'll be amazing to be able to expand that vision. And yeah, I guess time. Yeah. People's time is very valuable. I agree. It's a difficult thing to come across when it runs away.
When you think about like young people generally, and then maybe in context of the music industry, if you will, what are the positives that you see? Because of course, you talked about the hurdles and the wishes that you have, but there must be some positives for someone 100%. To cling on to, right? What are the positives in your mind?
One of the most important and one of the things I appreciate most about being involved in music is the community that I've built, and that I'm a part of. So many sort of important people to me that, close friends that I've made that are people that I wouldn't know. Had I not been part of music, even like, I live with one of my friends who I know because of music. And, there's just so many people that you meet through this who are really genuine, lovely people. That's definitely one of the most important things. The confidence is a big part of it as well. As I say, when I was young, I think I was much more sort of shy and introverted person, and I still, to some extent, am. But it's given me that confidence. I can stand on a stage and not feel scared in front of people.
Yeah.
And the vulnerability that comes with that, particularly with the kind of music that I make, and being able to express that in front of the world and whoever is there watching in front of you, complete strangers or even people that you know well, which is sometimes more daunting.
Yeah.
The confidence to do that is something that I'm really, really grateful for.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, it's a lot of kind of vulnerability, as you said, right? But I feel like that almost results into a lot more confidence, because it gives you that hope that, well, I've just done this crazy thing that I was just playing in my head for days, weeks and months, but it wasn't that bad. So then it gives you the confidence to do it again and again and again. And hopefully with that, going back to your point about honing your craft, comes along with that, because you're doing it again and again. You're practicing and practicing, and then hopefully you get better and better, right? Sure. And then hopefully the success will follow after that.
Yeah, and success is a difficult word, because there's obviously the sort of financial and career success, but in many ways I'd consider myself a successful musician without that, just because I make things that I'm really proud of. Yeah. And I've met beautiful people through it.
Amazing.
I've, created connections, and I've been able to, with the help of my producers and the people that I keep around me, make ideas in my head into real life things that other people can hear. That's a beautiful experience. Yeah. And absolutely, I call that a success. Yeah. So
I've loved hearing your perspective on various topics we've discussed. One of the last questions I ask guests on the show is, if you were young again, so in your case, you're already very young compared to me. So if you were like 16, 18 again, and you're trying to decide, okay, what do I do? Do I take the gap year or not? Should I go study pharmacy? Should I move to London? What advice would you give to your younger self?
Believe in yourself, man. I don't know. I feel like having that confidence and self-belief is really important, and something that maybe I was lacking a little bit at that point in time. Through all these experiences that I've had, you learn so much, you meet so many people, and you have experiences that you're always going to remember, no matter what route you take. And I think ultimately just don't panic too much. It's going to be okay.
Amazing. Stick
with it. And I guess maybe try not to be too scared of taking risks. But yeah, I think looking back at myself back then, I wish maybe I had a little bit more confidence just to learn about myself and express myself. I think that's the most important thing.
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for coming on the show. I am going to put you on the spot and ask you to, maybe, if you want, you don't have to, you can say no, maybe do a few lines of rapping for us for whichever song you feel like, or whatever you remember as you were struggling earlier. So
okay.
Whatever you want. And you don't have to, as I said.
Yeah, sure. No, why not? Let's do it. Let me see, what shall I do for you? Okay, so little exclusive. I'm working on an album at the moment, which I'm hoping to release later this year. It's still in the works, but I'm sort of nearing the end of it now. Let me see, maybe I can do the first verse of the first single for you, if I remember it correctly. Okay. And it goes like, if I ever get rich, I'm going to buy a bunch of vinyls. In a room, I'll buy a shelf where I can stack and buy the title. A chair, a couple speakers, and the feeling of arrival as I listen to these lyrics like a reading from the Bible. In rare moments of reprisal, I learn my hopes and dreams are both deceitful and insightful. Achievements ain't as healing as I thought they'd be. Trying to hold onto the hand that brought the horse to see the water. As the common saying goes, you can't force them to fill their thirsty bodies or to carry you on forwards. Give a star to follow, but the pull is too alluring. Keep it too far out of reach and too close to be rewarding. Illusions of completeness at the destination. So I jump a little higher like it's heaven waiting. Left me empty like the end of the rainbow. Didn't make it, but I came close. And yeah, so that's the first verse of that
Amazing.
song.
I'm going to
So,
applause on that. Thank you
thank
so
you
much for
very much.
sharing. I love it. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right.
Appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks for having me.